Okay, we're gonna get started. So, before we start the review, Dr. Marcy wanted me to touch on just the exam. And like overall, people did pretty good, but there were a few lower scores. So for the people who are watching this on YouTube as well, if you're struggling or you're not happy with how the first exam went, please reach out to us. You still have time to like get help and learn the material for the second midterm and the final. So if you didn't get a very good score or you were quite a bit below the average, please let us know so that we can help you and so that you can do better in this class moving forward. So that's all. So let's start with question 1. Which direction does the maxillary deciduous cusp tip lie and for what reason?
Inside the
Which,
right?
what?
Am I wrong?
Distal, yeah.
Never mind.
Good try, good try.
I tried.
It's distal, which is in my
But
drawing.
you do see it in the incisal view.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So if you look at it from the inside view, like if you look down
Yeah,
on it,
no.
yeah, it's on the. Yeah. Does anyone know why? Kind of, yeah, close. There's a specific word he uses. It's intercuspation. I think that's how you say it, with the mandibular cusp. So basically they can like close on each other the right way. Does that make sense? Okay. Question 2. How does the cusp tip differ between the permanent and deciduous maxillary canines?
Isn't it shorter?
Yes, yeah. It's a lot longer too. It appears longer and sharper, which in my drawing is why I have the little arrow. Okay, number 3, which permanent tooth does the deciduous maxillary second molar resemble and why?
Is it the permanent maxillary first molar?
Yes. For what reason?
Is it like because of the permanent dentition?
Like what are the similarities like in their shape or how they look?
It's like big, the crown's bigger.
Not quite. So we're talking, so you're right, the maxillary, okay, so the deciduous maxillary second molar looks like the permanent maxillary first molar. And what aspects about how they look makes them look similar? Like their occlusal table or their cusps, like how do they look similar?
Are they both rhomboid?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So basically what I'm getting at is they both have the rhomboid occlusal outline. They both have the like cusp of Carabelli, like non-functional cusp on the mesiolingual cusp. And then they both have that oblique ridge connecting the mesiolingual and distobuccal cusps. So there's just some like anatomical similarities that makes them look similar. All right, number 4, which maxillary deciduous molar is larger?
The second one.
Yeah. Yep. And then 5, what are some differences between permanent and deciduous roots?
They're flared.
Yes, they're flared. So
Thinner.
yes, they're thinner.
I think a little bit more like bulbous too.
I think you're thinking of what do you mean?
Aren't they longer too?
Yeah, they might
I
be.
guess flared and bulbous are kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, like they flare out this way a lot more. Yeah. So this was going back to like the second or third lecture, I believe. But I just wanted like my point with that question, and you guys did a good job. So good job. But my point with that question is on this exam that's coming up, like the next exam, he'll ask you to compare the like anatomical differences of the teeth, like the stuff that we're talking about right now, but he'll also ask you like, how is the enamel different? Where like the permanent is a little not as bright, the deciduous is way brighter. Like what about like, is it thin? Is it thicker? Is it like he's gonna ask those questions again. So as you're comparing the like shapes and sizes, also think about like the general differences. Okay. All right. What's one similarity between the deciduous maxillary central incisor and the deciduous mandibular lateral incisor.
They both like round ones?
Not quite, no. They both, so I have my drawing here. I wrote this in my drawing. It's this line here. They're both have their incisal edge centered over the crown. So it's like if you're looking down or up at it from the incisal angle, it's like a flat, it's like a very centered line of the incisal edge. Does that make sense? Okay. Come on, number 7, compare and contrast the deciduous lateral incisors.
What's their labiolingual dimensions are the same?
Yes, yeah. So both besides the, okay, wait. I'm confusing myself with this question and what I wrote down.
It's like individual.
Yes, yeah, sorry. I was confusing myself with that. Yeah, so there have the same dimensions besides the labiolingual. Is that what you said?
Oh, then maybe I'm.
So they have similar dimensions besides the labiolingual. Yeah.
So what's the difference?
Or they're large. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm like absolutely confusing myself with this. I'm gonna double check to make sure I'm right here. Okay. Obviously, I don't know these as well as the, but let me make sure. Okay, yeah, so the lateral incisor is larger in all measurements except the labial-lingual. Does that make sense? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
both it just, I think it says the labia are
Identical, yeah, they're
so
equal.
they're the same.
Sorry, that was my bad. Any questions on that? Sorry, that was confusing. Are you guys good?
I'm just trying to understand that.
Keep going. Okay. Number 8. True or false? All of the permanent and deciduous cuspids have a longer distal slope and a shorter mesial slope. So this is going back to the permanent teeth as well.
True. Oh, not all of them. Is it the other way around?
So which ones?
Oh,
So no, it's not the other way around.
what do you mean?
So
True.
So it's false.
Would it be false?
Yeah, it'd be false. So it's false. The deciduous maxillary cuspid has a it's opposite. It's a longer mesial slope.
The permanent is the opposite of the deciduous, right? So what you just said.
So yes, but only for the maxillary. The mandibular, they're the same. So for this, make sure you go back and check like the slope sizes relative to one another.
That makes sense.
Yeah, wait. So they all, the way that I think about it is they all have a longer distal slope and a shorter mesial slope besides the deciduous maxillary.
Okay.
And it's flipped. Okay, number 9, which deciduous tooth is the odd one out?
Oh, the second one. Not clear. Never mind. Oh, wait, okay, deciduous first molar of the mandibular.
Yes, deciduous mandibular first molar is the odd one out. He loves this question. Definitely know this one. For the deciduous teeth, there's 3 teeth that like have something special for the molars. So the mandibular first molar is the odd one out for the deciduous teeth. Know that. And then there are two maxillary molars between the deciduous and permanent that resemble each other, know those, and then same with the mandibular. So if there's any comparison between like this deciduous tooth looks exactly like this permanent one, make sure you know that, because he really likes to ask about that on the exam.
Can you repeat which ones are similar?
So the mandibular first is the odd one out,
Okay.
and then the deciduous mandibular first is the odd one out.
Mhm.
And then the maxillary, the permanent maxillary first molar is similar to the deciduous maxillary second molar, which is one of the questions. And then the the permanent mandibular first molar resembles the deciduous mandibular second molar.
Okay.
Yeah, and it says this in his, like it's underlined and bolded in his thing. I just wanted to point that out because I remember that being either on the quiz or the exam.
Right, on the video, was you clarify which one is the odd one out as well?
Yes, it was, yeah. Oh yeah, some of you guys haven't even watched the video yet, right? Yeah. Okay. So some of this might not make sense, but yeah, he brings up the teeth that look like each other and then which one's the odd one out. So know that and understand why. So that brings us to question 10. Which tooth does the mandibular permanent first molar resemble and how does it differ? Yeah, the deciduous, or yes, the deciduous. Wait, sorry, did you say deciduous or permanent? There's too many words. Okay, the mandibular permanent first molar resembles the mandibular deciduous second molar. And the way that it's different is that the deciduous or baby tooth is just smaller, has a smaller crown. Okay, and then 11, what do the deciduous mandibular molars have in common? And how does this buccal feature make them appear? Okay, and then for this one, I'm actually gonna draw a photo.
Is this with like very misunderstanding has like the same like relative sizes?
Not quite. So for this one, I was a little confused about this when I took the class, so I just wanted to like clarify what it means. So I'm gonna find it so you guys can like look at exactly what I'm looking at. For the mandibular deciduous molars, in his like workbook, he talks about the cervical ridge on the buccal surface is prominent and the crown appears to lean lingually. The buccal crown contours nearly flat from the buccal crest to the occlusal surface. And then he talks about that again for the second molar, saying that there's a prominent cervical ridge on the buccal, creates a lingual tilt to the crown. So I just wanted to explain what that means because that's like a lot of like words, and it doesn't really show in the picture. So if you were looking at our tooth, okay, those are the roots. This is not anatomically correct, like at all. Okay. And these are the cusps, okay? So we're looking at it. It's a really odd shape. It's beautiful. But we're looking at it here. I draw like this. Thank you, Paula. We're looking down at this tooth like from the side, right? Like from the mesial. So this would be on your right side, a mandibular tooth. So this would be your buccal side. So this is where your cheek is. It has this cervical ridge, they call it, which is like basically kind of like a bulge, but in the deciduous teeth, it's a lot more pronounced. And so because of this, this tooth has this angle that makes it look like it's leaning towards the tongue. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that because the verbiage is a little confusing in the workbook. And so that is true for both. So he just talks about it for the mandibular deciduous teeth, and it's true for both the first and second. Okay, so for that, you could say like to answer the question For 11, you can say there's a prominent cervical ridge, and it makes them look like they lean lingually. Okay. Question 12. What color do deciduous crowns appear as?
White.
Like a
Bright white, yeah. Bright white.
50%.
Almost there.
Okay.
Bright white, that's another like comparison thing, just to keep in mind as you're taking this next exam. And then tell me about the enamel of deciduous teeth.
It's very thin.
Very thin. What else? It has like consistent thickness as well. So it's not like thicker in some areas and not in the others. It's thin and consistent. And then what is the significance of deciduous teeth?
Oh, it's like three.
Yeah, there's 3.
There's
Place.
job development
Uh-huh.
and, oh, I think
Placeholders. We got 2.
And like, don't they help like when the premolars come in or something, like what, where does come
That's
in?
the first permanent molar.
Yes,
Or
yeah.
like
So
molar.
guiding first permanent molars, the
Yeah.
6 to 7 year
And it
molars.
also helps with like spacing in the mouth.
Exactly, yeah. Which is why I can't remember how much he touches on this, but that's why it's really important to keep your baby teeth. And so like when people have kids, watching like the juice intake, and if they're like sipping on a bottle of juice throughout the day, if they lose their teeth faster, they don't have those teeth there to guide their permanent teeth to come in. So it's important to keep your baby teeth as long as you can before they fall out naturally.
Is that why crowding happens? Like really?
I've never really think about
I'm
it.
not sure why crowding happens. I think that depends on more just like how much space you have like in your mandible or maxilla compared to your teeth. Like my sister has a really small face and like huge teeth, so she had to get a bunch pulled. And I think that has to do with more of like the relative sizes of things. That's a good question. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions? Let me know.